So the audio vision is good. And it's the audio addition to the Daily Trade Strategy Briefing. NFA Compliance Rule 2-9C, subparagraph 1. Know it, love it, and live in it. We're living the dream. Living the dream. All right, John's in here. Everybody else? Yes, no, maybe? Bueller? Loud and clear. Okay, good. Just want to make sure everybody's on track. All right. All right, so today is cycle day 3. As you can see here, these are the cycle levels. And you can see here 3-day cycle targets here. Both ES and Q have been fulfilled. So as such, we will mark today as a wild card. Again, this is my term, not a Taylor term. Wild card for direction. Speaking of direction, we don't have much in the way of the overnight action here, just sitting at or near to the highs, all-time highs, that is. And waiting for some evidence of what the market wants to do. So this is also referred to as a flag, right? So different types of flag formations, right? Just talking about flags for a moment. Okay, different types, right? So you're going to have the flag pole, right? And then, you'll have a flag that's kind of, waving downwards like that, right? That's kind of one typical flag, a pullback. And then we have another flag where kind of like it's flying strong, right? Kind of flying strong. And then another typical type flag where okay, kind of 3 types of flags. So the idea of the flags are they're typically they're continuation patterns, right? So you get the flagpole and then you get a pullback, right? Kind of this is the one that kind of we most are looking for type. And again, I'll show you that from our, let me just, actually, let me, I didn't mean to erase that, right? Did not mean to erase that. So let's just put those up again. Right, so that's type of flag. We got kind of a rising flag, somewhat like a pennant. Okay, and then we have, kind of these type flags, right? So this type flag here, is kind of generally what we look for. Generally, right? And again, this kind of flag pole, it's never a straight line, right? So you can kind of see here, kind of this move up, and then this is a flag pattern. Okay, so that's this type of flag pattern. And then of course what you see here is this type of flag pattern. Okay, so they're both valid flags. We do come across kind of that rising flag. All right. So what kind of the interpretation of these? So generally when we get the first type of flag where the market moves, aggressively higher, and then there's a period of pullback consolidation, somewhere's in the neighborhood of about 50%, right, of the flagpole itself. Doesn't have to be 50, could be 25%, 30%. you know, but again, it's some percentage pullback. The deeper the pullback, right? Hold on just a moment. 1 second. Okay, so anyways, those are the kind of the three type of flag patterns, right? The second flag pattern, more like a, you know, real strong pennant. This is really strong, right? Momentum, super strong momentum. This is kind of normal or pullback, right? Kind of pattern. And we look for those. And then what we would look for is the break of the, you know, the high, right? For an entry. And then in terms of the last one, all right, it's kind of like, you know, the wind, kind of think about the wind, right? As a flag. So the wind is blowing, you know, the kind of the wind blew strong upwards, and then the wind kind of died down a little bit, right? And then the wind started getting back again on the second pattern where it's kind of, you know, really kind of looks like a pennant. The wind is, you know, still pretty strong, right? And it's the same here on the sideways pattern, right? So the wind is persistent, right? Not really giving up anything, but not super strong is the middle pattern, right? That is real strong. This is moderate, call it, right? So, all right, so that's just kind of from flags, right? So related to trading. All right, so the first pattern is you know, kind of you get a kind of a move going, kind of get it. Doesn't matter what time period, by the way, right? The idea is the same. So a strong kind of move, and then kind of a relaxed pullback, right? You get some profit taking there, etc., and then that kind of exhausts itself, and then buyers come back. Typically, the move on the first part of the flag pole move is similar to the second move, so we call that symmetry, similarity, or likeness in swing, right? Some people call it a zigzag, similarity, or right type of thing, right? So this is a move up, kind of pullback, kind of flags, and then an additional move up, right? So these are very common patterns. So again, you should kind of think about, right, at least trying to identify those. Uh, and you could see that in yesterday's intraday, and you got to kind of drill down a little bit, right? But we kind of had this move up, and then kind of this type of a pattern here before we kind of got the move going into end of day. All right. So, anyways, just kind of wanted to highlight something about flags. Again, they're common patterns, and they're worthwhile, you know, keeping an eye out on. And then again, you can see them pretty much everywhere and anywhere they do develop. So here would be another case in point in the tick chart world. Okay, where again we got kind of this move up, and we got a little bit of a pullback there. There's your flag there, right? Kind of a zigzag move up here, and then a little bit of a deeper flag. So if you're kind of looking from it from this perspective, kind of a larger flag, right? Pullback. Basically, pullbacks, flags are just simply pullbacks, all right? Offering us an opportunity to when that completes, when it starts moving back up, then that becomes our opportunity, right? After the flag pattern has completed, right? So again, you know, they all come in little shapes. Like here's even a little temporary flag, right? So the market moves up here, right? And kind of temporarily here goes sideways. By the way, sideways consolidations, whether you classify them as a flag or not, sideways consolidations are continuation patterns. They just reached an area of some little, some response to from the opposite side. Market kind of has to absorb that area. It's not typically it's not a reversal. You may kind of get a dip below, and then again, this is where these dynamic PKBs come into effect quite a bit. We talk about PKBs from the highs and lows of prior days, but they can happen throughout the day in little mini consolidations, right? So you can see here, just like a zoom in a little bit, right? So again, kind of more art than science here, but you're kind of flagging in here, then you get a little dip below and then snaps back up, right? So always be kind of thinking about these PKB type patterns, right? They're everywhere, right? It's just how micro, to what micro degree you want to do that at. All right. So something just to kind of keep in mind, put it in your toolbox. All right. See what comes of it. All right. Okay. Overnight, you can see just kind of scrappy action, just kind of sawtooth kind of action. So again, what we'll do is just remember we got a wild card day. All right. For direction. 45s here is the line in the sand. Right, 45s right down here. So we had a little dip below 45s and a reclaim. All right, so that would be like a little PKB right here for here's your low. All right, it's kind of moving around here. Hold on, let me just stop this. Okay, so here's your here's your low. That's the 45s. Excuse me, 45s up here. So a little dip below and then recovery. So there's your kind of PKB type pattern. Like I said, they're everywhere. Okay. So it all depends how you want to approach those, right? Most will focus on PKBs from highs and lows, prior highs and lows. But like I said, they're essentially everywhere. You know, that can be measured. Anytime you can measure a high-low swing, you can identify. As a matter of fact, that way you can also identify D-level and money boxes, right? Dynamically, any high-low swing you can identify. So that's a good way of kind of outlining a potential PKB. All right, so that's the skinny. Let's go to work. Let's see what the market gives us today. Again, as always, right? Be patient, wait for your trade setup, and let the market give us some good, clean, good clean trades. Let me change the sound. Okay. So very neutral overnight. And we'll wait for what Mr. Market gives us. And we kind of had that trend up yesterday, so kind of an MATD potential start to the day. Obviously, bulls still have control, and we'll see what they want to do.
So yeah, David just went over the early morning ideas for today. You can see here from the dome, I had what's he calling a PKB is what the terminology I use for that is look below and fail. So at around uh, seemingly like about around 7:30 this morning, we traded below the 67.45 low and recovered it. That's my long here. You can see me long at 67.46. It's also a setup that I put out prior to engaging it on Twitter. So if you want to check that out, you can follow me at Manny Trends, Manny underscore Trends. I typically post my setups prior to the day starting. I typically don't get them all out on Twitter.
Nvidia's flagging.
I think that's something I'm going to have to do. One more task for the morning. But I guess if it helps anyone, right? That's the idea. I'm the kind of the way I trade is I typically don't like to hear or listen to a lot of different analysis because I kind of come in with my own game plan and I kind of want to get that executed. So in the past, what I've realized is that the more analysis that I that I subjected myself to, it would just lead. It didn't lead to better trading. It didn't lead to better profits. It just led me to more confusion. So all right, you can see that trade is working out pretty well there. I had so it was long at 67.46, 67.45.
Yeah, I'm here. Oh,
There he is. He's back.
I'm here.
All right, so I just got some feedback.
Yeah, that's the 6740 SPX.
I just got some feedback about my screen having too much information on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the show right now and come back tomorrow with a better screen setup, one that's actually viewable by it's more viewable and it can be a little bit clearer, might actually help anyone watching out. I think you're right. While this setup is really good for me.
All right, just kind of chopping around again. Sand 45s. That was touched early this morning, pre-opening, and we're just kind of sitting here. Bull's still in control, right? So there's no reason to play shorts at the moment until we see some definitive change of character, right? We may have to just sit for a little bit, but I don't see any real change of character yet. So
for what it's worth, oh, we just got a signal. So for what it's worth, that trade is still working out really well. I had a 5-point scale and an 8-point scale. And now I'm just in my runner, right? I'm just trailing it up and see if we get a breakout here over the overnight high.
again, the bulls are just going to keep probing and probing until they find where there's good responsive sellers.
All right, you can see here we're running into this fib resistance and we're kind of pulling off. Here on the higher time frame, you can also see that we have the same match there. So 67, 55 to 60 is going to be some trouble. And if we rocket through it, right, if we just bust through it, that's a great tell, right? If we seem to just convert this resistance, that would give us a good idea for how bullish we are today, right?
And it's all boom bust, in memory.
Financials here also sitting at new highs, even as we were talking earlier in the show about the cyclical breakouts that we're in. I mean, does that surprise you that we're seeing financials continue to climb?
I wouldn't say surprising. I think it's more reassuring than that. And I think as a general proposition, easier Fed.
All right, as expected, we're pulling back off the fib resistance. Again, I'm just monitoring this long. It still hasn't really gone anywhere. We're still within the overnight range. A little bit concerned right now about the potential look above and fail above the overnight high.
PMI? The PMI today? PMS?
Cheapest to book value and the one that was least trusted, I would argue, in terms of strategically positioning.
And you got Powell later on. A lot of Fed speak this week.
So we came, what? Just a few ticks shy of yesterday's high and we pulled off. So that's, yeah, I'm not convinced here. I mean, this is just probably a normal rotation. You can also see here that at the highs, right? Let's just change this volume profile out. Let's take a look.
All right, NQ on the short, opening range playing out so far.
He did address the controversy over the H-1B visas. If we have it ready, here's what Don said.
I believe in merit-based immigration.
You know, I would beg the president, he is accomplished border control. That's great. I mean, I think all nations want real border control. That helps make a nation. But after that, we should have, good immigration.
It's interesting. The Secretary of State meeting with Indian trade officials who are here this week to work out, hopefully, more of a copacetic trade deal. This might have been used as some leverage in that. Really don't want. Diamond seemed to be arguing it took some of the industry by surprise.
For sure. Right. So, I mean, that's what the program is about. It's supposed to be merit-based immigration, right? These visas. So he probably
all right. So,
forcing that. Of course, India by far.
Yeah, we're definitely pulling off quite a bit from that high. Here comes the question, right? Trade management is so important. So, do I close this trade out or do I stick with it? It's never an easy answer, that's for sure. I'm curious to find out how some of you guys manage it. Always interested in how other traders are doing it. I mean, one of the most important things we can do as retail traders is share information and tactics that work, right? Yeah. There's no reason for me to keep this. But here's the interesting part, right? I'm almost starting to stick with it, right? Because so at the highs, the high of
right here in the 50s.
The high of 67.55.75. We went 30 contracts on the bid, 71 on the offer, right? That's typically not the way you're going to see an auction end. Also, to add to that, we have our time study that's looking for an AM high somewhere in between 10 a.m. and 10:45. So yeah, no, I'm not closing this out. If it takes me out at break even, so be it, right? I'm still very profitable on the trade with a 5 and 8 point scale. And another benefit to this is kind of just keeping me out of the need or want to do anything. If you're right, stay right. That's what I like to think. Let's see. Slim Dome. Here we go.
And help viewers understand why the addressable market is what it is. Brand cachet is the way to think of it. So everybody wants to talk about, no, everything's going to be on your phone, technology, and so on. But at the end of the day, people still like brands because it says something about themselves. And taking out a metal credit card.
Big reversal in the NASDAQ. Yeah. So, yeah, it just makes me wonder, right? What are the transports doing? Transport's always a good. Oh, transports are rallying. Yeah, interesting.
All right, we're having some fun now.
Again, sticking with the trade for the reasons I stated. I just don't see, if I get knocked out, so be it. But I just don't see a valid reason to close it. Let's see what else materializes here. Right now, we're testing the overnight point of control, which is at 67.50.75. Overnight low, 67.44.
Does that harken back to things we saw in the 90s or not? No, I do think, I suppose you could say some of it is the same, but overall, here's the way
what is this account number here? 2141.
We're only 40 years into the digital
2141.
We're only
yeah, I have an account that's a little underwater here. All right. You can see here, I just got the go signal on this long. You can see this blue flag here, this blue arrow, up arrow here. Let's see if I can get a favorable fill. Again, we have time study on our side. Internals are positive, really positive. The NASDAQ is the only weak part. RTY's bid, transports are bid. Just looking around here. Yeah, so we can't expect XLK to be up because of the NASDAQ, right? Financials are bid. I think we have momentum on our side. Let's just see if we can get a favorable fill. Ideally, let's see. What is that? What is a favorable fill here?
Probably so. When that comes, tough to know, but I know that trend is there. There's no alternative to a data center for storing information.
Well, here's a red flag, right? So, okay, so on a 5-minute chart, we have 3 prints. All of them. Oh, here we go. All right, I have to get something on here.
Is the main constraint.
Long 2 contracts, 10-point stop.
Trying to figure out a way where you might be able to navigate.
For now, we're going to open it wide. I don't like the fact that all right, so what I was saying earlier is that we have our first 3 3 5-minute prints are all equal. The 3 candles are all equal size body, right? That's a red flag for me because that signals indecision at the open. I mean, it could always. Typically that's the way a chop day starts, right? You just stay in that opening range. Market doesn't seem to have much interest in long or short. All right, so I'm long 54. I think under 67.50, I'm wrong. So let's tighten that up. We're gonna put the stop in right just under 67.50 quarter. Point below, no need to risk anything more. If we come back in, right? If we come back in, then what do we know? We know that the market's going to stay in this range and it's going to chop around and there's just nothing but indecision. The earlier long is still working. So again, I still have the 67.46 quarter long. Maybe this lets you know a little bit about my trade management methodology, right? I typically will get in a position, hold a runner, and I'll hold it as long as it's working, as long as my break-even stop does not get taken out. But in reality, having a 5-point scale and an 8-point scale, right? There's 13 points. My theoretical average, my theoretical stop would be 13 points behind 67.46. Right. I will put my stop at 67.33. Obviously, nobody's going to let it get to that, right? I think that under 67.50, I'm wrong. And you guys, look, you see how we're sputtering out. I just think that with the internals being what they are, trannies being what they are, our time study, signaling, I think that we should stay on here.
Hey, congratulations on Purple Secure. Thanks for sitting down. Thanks, man. Wish Jim and David were here, but we'll see you next time. Thanks to you guys. As we're talking, we got some flash PMIs. Let's get to Rick Santella. Hey, Rick.
Yeah, so we see rates looking a little bit lower and the equities moving a little bit higher. Fed implications there. S&P Global Manufacturing Service Composite coming in weaker than expected.
Still holding here.
Look at the headline, 52.0. That would be the weakest.
I'm not going to add to it. I just, those first 3 5-minute prints just, I mean, you could easily be right on this trade, and it's just not going to materialize for the first hour. We'll see what shakes out.
All 3 are less than expectations. All 3 are sequentially lower. Good news, at least all 3 are above 50 expansion territory. We still have Richmond Fed manufacturing and service indices at the top of the hour, and interest rates, while they're a bit lower on the session, down 3 in a 10-year. Stock on a due to return after a short break.
Rick, appreciate that. We're looking at pictures of the President and the First Lady making their way to the UN, where he will address the General Assembly today. It comes on the heels of a bunch of different...
Still just chopping around.
Circulating all around the globe, whether that's sanctions against...
Not going anywhere. And look, it's evident from our little gauge here, right? I like these little gauges, kind of gives me the tempo. You can see that we're just hovering in the yellow, right? A slight bit of red, so we have some selling in here. But generally, that selling is being absorbed, right? Whatever selling we're seeing there, it's just not, they're not getting any traction for it. Still long 67.54 quarter. The
All
first
right, not much
59
happening here. Just chugging along here in this tight range. Let's see.
and 64. Let's see what plays out.
Just monitoring the situation at the moment. Yeah, sandbox is narrow.
All right, guys, we're moving out here. Let's see. Plenty of day left ahead. All right, here we go. We're approaching this fib resistance, right? Looking to break out. I'm going to add a little bit to this on the breakout. Just for a scalp. And see what turns out here. Nothing too serious.